Massive changes are already underway at UCLA football with Bob Chesney's influence felt already with the latest changes.
You are Locked On UCLA, your daily podcast on the UCLA Bruins. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to this edition of the Locked On UCLA podcast. Welcome back, everybody. I'm Zach Anderson-Yoxheimer. Thanks for making this your first listening to every day. It's free wherever it's your podcast and is available on YouTube. Like, comment, subscribe, download. Thanks for your support. Welcome back, everydayers. Today, we're talking about number 125, UCLA's 125th national championship. Then we'll talk about the potential irony of UCLA and USC once again sharing the same stadium as reported by the LA Times. And we'll also begin today's show with UCLA with massive staff changes from 24/7 Sports, On3, and Bruin Report Line, all reporting various changes for UCLA. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. If you want to be in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL bets all season long. Well, the big news, which I talked about on the other show I just posted a day ago, UCLA is bringing Derek Ray to be the general manager for UCLA. Coming over from Florida State, UCLA is moving on from Kerry Darlington. The Bruins, which was reported by On3 and 24/7 Sports, saw Pete Nakos and Matt Zenitz on it. Zenitz had a touch on it about a day ago. The Bruins are making a change at that position. So UCLA is getting somebody with West Coast ties, moving off from Florida State. I know yesterday I talked about how Florida State fans were not really happy about the job that Derek Ray is, but he's been doing at Florida State. But he comes to UCLA, fresh start, new opportunity, and a West Coast guy breathing in some new info potentially to Bob Chesney, and hopefully still has some pipelines out in Florida when it comes to helping recruiting and building rosters for years to come. So Chesney says it doesn't matter what the job was done by the previous staff. It doesn't matter that UCLA was able to put together some semblance of a recruiting staff or recruiting commitment list here in 2026. They're already moving on and changing things here in 2026. So that's the first true new guy other than Dean Kennedy that's come to UCLA. And Dean Kennedy, if you missed it, is the new offensive coordinator for UCLA, coming from James Madison, as we would expect Bob Chesney to bring some of his dudes in his own influence for this year's upcoming roster. Now, for Chesney's other influence, this is talked about by Bruin Report Online. They had at first the staff changes, some of which we could have seen coming. Well, with UCLA moving to Kennedy as the offensive coordinator, that meant Jerry Neuheisel's status is up in the air. Well, Bro Report confirmed it that there will be no Jerry Neuheisel. He was already looking at other spots. If Rick Neuheisel was going to get that Washington State job, Jerry would have followed him and been the offensive coordinator and get that opportunity. And even on the last episode, I talked about Jerry's time at UCLA, which wasn't officially done just yet, has been ticking for him to go get a new opportunity. Now, there's been the photo shared with him standing next to Ryan Day, go be the new offensive coordinator. Whatever it might be, he deserves an opportunity and a chance to shine. Not as an analyst, not a position coach only. He needs to go get that chance and call plays. And there's been thoughts and rumors that he turned down spots at UConn with Jim Mora. Mind you, Jim Mora just got hired at Colorado State, so we'll see what that looks like. I haven't looked at what his staff looks like at this moment, but there's other spots that he could go with the wizardry, the master class performance of calling plays while taking over a team midweek and leading to a win over Penn State, a then top 10 Penn State team with a team that was in flux, and UCLA went on a 3-game winning streak. So I hope Jerry gets that opportunity and he returns to the blue and gold in the future. But right now, UCLA needs to shake things up, and Jerry needs his own opportunity. 2, the other guy, Coach Meat, is heading elsewhere. He will not be retained by this new staff, which would make a lot of sense when you see the mass influx of UCLA players intending to head to the transfer portal. Those are largely DBs, some of which got some all Big Ten honors, like an Andre Jordan Jr., his son Cole Martin is not returning to UCLA. You saw LaRue Zamorano, who was one of the late flips in last year's recruiting class for UCLA football when Coach Meek got announced as the DB's coach. So the Bruins are already going to have to replace a secondary coach, a tight ends coach, and an offensive coordinator, one of which already being replaced. And the other guy, as reported by Bro Report, linebacker coach, you have Scott White, who is not returning. So some of which you're expecting to change, right? Well, the most recent addition with intention to transfer was the youngster Jameer Benjamin, who is heading into the transfer portal. So it looks like UCLA is going to have to do a whole lot of shopping in the secondary when it comes to turning over safeties, corners, nickels, whatever it looks like for UCLA's roster next year. I wonder how much of it will be Bob Chesney's pulling from and plucking from James Madison's roster versus just looking elsewhere in the portal. Because the one thing Coach Meat had was elite recruiting. And that's what the Bruins were able to bring in a whole array of talents. All right. A lot of talent in the secondary. Yet Chesney's bread and butter in recent years and over his head coaching tenure has been defense, 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 including holding the Sun Belt Offensive Player of the Year to a couple of picks in one of his worst rushing performances this season, Colton Joseph of Old Dominion, who I said UCLA should look at as a quarterback of their own. And think about it. They weren't blown to smithereens on defense when they faced Louisville. They weren't embarrassed in other games. They've had 6 second half shutouts for Bob Chesney's defense over this year alone. So I'm not worried about too many guys leaving the secondary. I just wonder where Chesney's going to pivot, how many guys he brings over, and that's a huge, huge influx of talent leaving. With Jameer Benjamin, the latest UCLA Bruin to go, that's a big, big change for the Bruins. Big change all over the staff. So we wish Jerry the best. We wish Coach Meat the best, Coach Martin, and Scott White the best. And also, one last one, Jethro Franklin is not going to be retained, the D-line coach for UCLA. So you look at all those guys, different pieces here and there changing, some of which you thought, okay, with all these players leaving, that's why Coach Meat was probably on the outs. Neuheisel going elsewhere, probably looking somewhere else. UCLA needing any talent and coaching on the D-line, well, they probably want to go in a different position, different opportunity. So we wish those guys all the best. But Chesney is already making his influence known. One would wonder, how is he going to do both jobs? Well, he's not exactly going to be like John Summerall of Tulane and the new Florida coach and post a double striped shirt, one Florida, one Tulane, 2 jobs, 2 hours. No, he's just going to get the job done, make the hires he needs to make, and bring the change in the culture that he has successfully brought to Salve Regina, Assumption, Holy Cross, James Madison to the playoff, and now to UCLA. So if there's any worries and hesitation that he's not going to have his fingers wrapped around the UCLA job while coaching the James Madison Dukes in the playoff, there's still another week or so before they get ready to take on the Ducks in Eugene. So this is a good week for him to kind of look at film, but also assemble UCLA's roster of coaches. Because the portal doesn't officially open till the 2nd, but this is a chance for UCLA to build their staff, find the pieces that they need, start recruiting, quote unquote, because we all know everybody does it, and still save next week for coaching, coaching, coaching. All right. Now, what's UCLA going to do beyond that? Well, there's a whole lot of things to change and a whole lot of things to choose, namely a home football stadium for 2026. And the funny thing is, in a couple years, UCLA and USC might be gracing the same home stadium just like they did when the Bruins played at the Coliseum. What do I mean? What do I think? I'll tell you next on Locked On UCLA. The holidays are officially here, which means the gift hunting season is on. And if you want something meaningful, personal, and guaranteed to get a reaction, Aura Frames is the gift that delivers every time. It's not just something you wrap, it's a way to share memories. Because Aura isn't just your average picture frame. You can preload the frame with photos before gifting it. So when it's plugged in, the memories are already there. No apps to figure out, no setup headaches, just instant smiles. The grandparents who aren't maybe technologically savvy, they'll have the memories and the tears of joy. Your parents, they'll love it. Newlyweds, put together a photo collage of their journey to their wedding day. For a limited time, save on the perfect gift by visiting auraframes.com to get $35 off Aura's best-selling Carver matte frames, named #1 by Wirecutter. Use the promo code COLLEGE at checkout. That's AURA frames.com, promo code COLLEGE. This deal is exclusive to listeners, and frames will sell out fast, so order yours now to get it in time for the holidays. Support the show by mentioning us at checkout. Terms and conditions apply. Well, the Bruins and the Trojans might share the same home stadium, same field, for the first time in many decades. The Bruins, well, we don't know exactly where they'll be playing in 2026, but where they'll be playing in 26 will most likely be the same place they'll be playing in 2028, we think, right? The UCLA Bruins are in the midst of a lawsuit with the city of Pasadena, with the Rose Bowl, roped in with Kroenke Sports and SoFi. The Bruins are in a whole mess, trying to figure out a way to simply get more money from their home football games. They're not getting much from the gate or parking or anything from the Rose Bowl. And despite the tradition, the ability for UCLA to have its own field, the Bruins have thought, let's just make it a little bit closer at a much worse venue for college football at SoFi Stadium. There, my bias is out there. But UCLA could very well start playing there as soon as 2026. Now, the report from the LA Times is that from Ryan Cartier, if I'm getting that name right, the USC beat reporter for the LA Times, put out the thought that USC might actually also be playing in SoFi, albeit for a season, not because the Coliseum's going down, but because what's being done to transform the Coliseum for the Olympics in 2028 might force USC to have to play 1, 2, or maybe an entire season away from their home stadium. Right now, we've seen the Coliseum. They've hosted Rams games when the Rams and Chargers had moved away. So you would think, all right, that agreement could be in place, could be an easy one to negotiate with the Trojans having hosted the Rams before when they were waiting for SoFi to be completed. Now one would expect them to transition to SoFi for 2028, whether it's a game, two, or plenty. Which means there could be a world where UCLA is playing at SoFi. The Rams, the Chargers, and USC are all playing at SoFi. Three of those teams are blue and gold, so it'd be a pretty easy color transition for UCLA to fit the color scheme of the two teams already playing there. USC might actually use that. And think about it, how UCLA was actually playing at the sports arena when Pauley Pavilion was out of commission for a year. They were playing at various spots during, what was it, about a decade ago, 15 years ago, when the Bruins are using different locations for their home basketball games. Well, USC would just simply transition, according to the LA Times, maybe for a game, maybe for two. It's not official, but because of the Olympics, they would leave SoFi. Now, the most petty thing that could happen, if we're being quite honest, is UCLA moves to SoFi. USC moves to the Rose Bowl. That would be the petty thing the Rose Bowl could do and say, hey, you know what? If this actually goes through and this negotiation, this official agreement through 2043 actually ends for UCLA in the Rose Bowl, which it seems like it will, just a matter of when, they could reach out to USC and say, hey, this is a place where you should come here. And I think that'd be kind of embarrassing. I would not want to see that under any circumstances, but the petty play for USC is to get that team, or for the Rose Bowl, is to get USC in there, and then UCLA is going to SoFi. I wonder how the scheduling would work, because you'd have to work around two NFL tenants, obviously, mostly Sundays. UCLA would play probably most Saturdays. Maybe you mix in a Big Ten Friday night game. And as long as there aren't any random Thursday night commitments, usually we've seen in Big Ten play, there's been a Friday and a Saturday, and those early season games prior to Labor Day or on Labor Day weekends don't conflict with the NFL at all, if they don't move to an 18-game schedule. We don't know if the NFL will or won't by that time, or if the players will stop harping on the fact they're playing 17 games. If the NFL does move to an 18-game schedule, could be a little more hectic based on how the schedule expands to when the season starts for the NFL, if UCLA and USC are all tenants with the Rams and the Chargers. I think this would be a poor decision for UCLA to fall through on the SoFi deal, and the fact that you'd be sharing yet another place with USC, even if only for a year, I just think it would spell disaster for the tailgating community of UCLA football. It's secretly much tougher to get to SoFi than it is the Rose Bowl. Let's be quite honest. As much as parking can be a hassle, raise the price, raise the cost for all the fun, and you get nothing out of it. Like, what are we doing? Like, what are we doing? The fact that UCLA and USC could share the home stadium, they could have their home uniforms together, and I think I look forward in 2028, UCLA is hosting USC. Well, the funny thing would be they'd be hosting the team that's also a temporary tenant of the same stadium they're using. Maybe USC doesn't need to use the SoFi Stadium for all their games in just a week or two. I wonder if that would affect scheduling down the line for Big Ten games, for other potential non-conference games, because those keep flip-flopping for any program in any university down the line. So UCLA, I really don't want to share the same stadium with USC, even if it's for a year. Get your own identity. It's at the Rose Bowl. Let's make it happen. Keep it there. And then try to figure out a way to build our own home stadium on campus. Is that possible? Very, very unlikely in the near and definite future. So the funny little relationship between UCLA and that other school across town, Bob Chesney says, we want to be the school. Let's make them the other school. Make them go play at SoFi for a year. Let's keep the Rose Bowl Stadium. But that would be a funny little coincidence if that happens in 2028 while we're figuring out where UCLA is going to play in 2026. Next, we're going to touch on 125 and the UCLA water polo success, winning their 125th national championship in UCLA's athletic history and NCAA titles. Next on Locked On UCLA. NFL Sundays move fast. One big play and suddenly everything feels different. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds, every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. Live betting is best when the game starts to shift and a receiver gets hot, defense tightens up, and the momentum flips after a turnover. FanDuel lets you jump into the moment, the live spreads and the money lines adjust instantly. The funny one recently was Raiders Broncos. That line was 7.5. Raiders kicked a field goal right at the end of the game to cover. If you were like, I see this coming, could have harped in, maybe hedged your bet, go all with that in FanDuel. So if you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and you'll place your NFL live bets all season long. FanDuel, the game moves fast, and so can you. One thing I haven't touched on the podcast this week was UCLA's water polo national championship winning victory over USC. A buzzer-beating goal with about a second left right as time expires to beat the USC Trojans, who were the number one overall seed. Good thing is, that don't matter. The Bruins, bam, 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 smacked them in the national championship by a buzzer-beating goal, 11-10 to win UCLA's 125th national championship in the athletic department history. So it was a huge game. UCLA was actually 27-2. Their only losses had come to USC. The Trojans were 23-4, but the Bruins just couldn't get over the hump until they did. The game-winning goal by Federico Huaca Carcelade, the game-winning goal, second of the game, got the job done. And the fun thing is, all these recent national championships for UCLA, coached by the Hall of Famer Adam Wright, who's now got 10 national championships for the Bruins. He has been the head coach for 6 national championships with men's water polo in 2014, 15 back-to-back, 17, 2020, and now back-to-back in 2024 and 2025. All those have come at the expense of our bitter and hated rival across town, USC. Huge dubs every single time for Wright. And that doesn't stop for Adam Wright. If you don't know him, athletic Hall of Famer for UCLA, head coach of men's water polo, won 2 championships as a player, also going back-to-back in 99 and in 2000, and then was at the helm of the women's water polo program in 2024, won the national championship, and was an assistant on the women's team that won in 2009. A lot of those beating USC. Man, oh man. Isn't it sweet to go beat your bitter rival in the national championship game? UCLA continuing to try and scratch and claw and come back on Stanford's lead in national championships overall, but the Bruins keeping an arm's distance to USC, winning the national championship in as dramatic of a fashion as it gets in water polo. Now, there is overtime and golden goal scenarios, but you never know what happens. You don't really want to get stuck in a sudden death sprint in the third overtime period if you go after back-to-back OT periods. You don't want to get stuck in that. Get stuck in a race. One team gets possession and they score. You don't want to get stuck with an exclusion at the wrong time and get in the power play or fall victim to an official's call. UCLA held possession and scored at the death. Rattled the cage, and the Bruins celebrating. Huge. Absolutely fun for UCLA to win it 125. Considering it could have been women's soccer, but now they were looking and trying to move on from a new head coach. Men's soccer had some fun runs in the Big Ten Championship, and their run to the conference Big Ten Championship fell a little short. Women's volleyball, same thing. Falling to Kentucky in just the second round of the NCAA tournament. At least they got a little further than USC, who got upset. The Bruins, they fought hard. They did their best this season, but our fall national championship is going to go to the water polo team. Now, I do hope in what was a pretty crazy fall sports quarter for UCLA students and big time for UCLA fans that the winter heading into March, heading into April will be even more fun. Why? Because UCLA, you got men's basketball, you got women's basketball. Women's basketball, probably a little bit of a better betting favorite to get 126. Men's basketball, they have a chance to really build their resume nationally by playing Gonzaga and getting the job done. And then in the spring, let's not forget we got UCLA softball trying to get back to the Women's College World Series and win a title. They were very close to getting in the winner's bracket, but some crazy plays went the wrong way for the Bruins in Oklahoma City. And let's not forget one last time. The UCLA baseball team is expected to be the #1 overall team in the country in 2026 with Rock Chalowski, Mulavai Levu, and all the incoming freshman pitchers, the transfers that John Savage has finally been able to tap into the portal. The Bruins are looking electric after their surprising run to the College World Series, after they were wondering where to play in their home stadium, right? Because you got a baseball team that doesn't know exactly what the future of their stadium holds. UCLA football doesn't know exactly where they're going to play, if it's the Rose Bowl, SoFi, or something else. There's a lot of uncertainty moving forward. But all we know is that the Bruins made the right hire in football. Baseball and the spring sports with softball are all going to be super exciting. And March Madness is going to be equally entertaining, treacherous, and the most excruciating time of the year. But a lot of fun and a lot of chances to talk about it here in Locked On UCLA, which is why we're talking about the Everydayer program. So we thank you for tuning in to Locked On UCLA. Tomorrow on the show, we're going to be looking at a crossover episode, Locked On UCLA, Locked On Zags, with Andy Patton, where we give our predictions, our keys, the storylines heading into UCLA Gonzaga in a crucial matchup between a top 10 ranked Zags team and a top 25 ranked UCLA team. So make sure to subscribe and follow Locked On UCLA in your podcast app and YouTube to get all the latest episodes. And with exciting new opportunities for you, with Locked On, we've launched the Everydayer Club. For $5 a month or $50 a year, you'll get all the shows ad-free, exclusive access to the Locked On Discord channel, and exclusive access to Locked On Sports Today, the Locked On National Show. So you don't want to miss out on that. Go check it out. And with everybody here with Locked On UCLA, this is for everybody. 8 clap time, baby. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. UCLA. UCLA, fight, fight, fight. This has been Locked On UCLA. Zach signing off. Go Bruins. And we got 125, baby.